Wanted to drop this video for a number of reasons. One, to use it as a form of therapy and me talking about the loss of my father, who was killed 3 Saturdays ago. Well, almost 3 Saturdays. Tomorrow will make it 3 weeks that I found my father's body in the middle of Glenwood Road in Decatur, Georgia. And I haven't had the opportunity to sit with a therapist or counselor to deal with the images of how I found my father. But I want to get it out because I don't know who this video is going to touch. However, I know for myself, like, this is therapy for me to be able to talk about it, to get it out. What is amazing too, in the midst of my father's death and this very tragic moment in my life, or traumatic moment in my life, is that in the midst of my father's death, I see miracles. I see the miracles, and I see the blessings, and being able to process in the midst of pain. And it's a pain that I've never dealt with. And I think that's why I wanted to do this video, because I've been in so much pain. I've been in so much agony, and being in a very painful place, and not being able to take anything to medicate the pain other than the love of my family, the love of my siblings, the love of my cousins, and my uncle, my aunts, but more importantly, my children have been such a and of course my mother. My children have been such a soothing balm, if you will. And the reason why I want to talk about them in the midst of this painful tragedy is because when I came into Atlanta April the 3rd, around about 8:35, I got into the city, and my daughter came to pick me up, and we decided to do dinner at one of our favorite spots in Atlantic Station, which is a date spot for us. And directly across the street is a new Thai restaurant, and I wanted to check it out that night. However, we decided to proceed to one of our favorite spots, not knowing that my sister, who I hadn't seen in 6 years, who I hadn't talked to in 6 years, my brother, who I hadn't seen in like 20 years, was sitting directly across the street in one restaurant, and my daughter and myself was sitting in another restaurant when we both got the phone call about the tragic death of my father. My sister and my brother got to the scene before I did, and of course they're younger than myself. But in that moment of before I got to the scene, in that moment before I left the restaurant, I never understood when people say, going into a state of shock and experiencing that. Like, we were on the patio at this particular restaurant, and when I got the call, my daughter and we had just toasted, and I said, well, what are we toasting to? And she was just like, we're toasting to new beginnings. And to get the phone call right after that toast, my aunt Vanessa called me and said, I hate to tell you this. Oh no, she said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your father is dead. All I can do was hand the phone to my daughter and walk away from where we were sitting. And I moved several different places on the patio because I was in a state of shock, but I think more so I was in disbelief, but belief at the same time. It was just a very weird moment for me. I didn't break down and cry at that moment. I just said to my daughter, we have to go. And we went downstairs in the garage, got in the car. And when I got into the car, that's when I lost it. In the midst of me losing it, I got another phone call, and was my aunt calling me back to tell me that my father's body was still in the middle of the street. So they pronounced my father dead at 9:01. The coroners, or the people that investigate those types of scenes, they pronounced my father deceased at 9:01. I got the call around 9:30. She told me his body was still in the middle of the street on Glenwood. My daughter took me to the scene. All I remember was the flashing lights as we came over the hill, got off the exit and came over the hill on Glenwood in Decatur, Georgia. And there was blue lights everywhere. And in that moment, I jumped out of my daughter's car and I started walking in the middle of the street. And I saw my father's body laying on the ground. I mean, that was a scene to see. That was a scene to see. I think my brother came and got me and took me to where my sister was, which was in a car, in her truck. But I did not know that when my brother and my sister got to the scene, my sister jumped out of the car too and fainted. And they had to carry her back to her vehicle. And me being the oldest, I'm thinking I'm going to be strong for my siblings. I had called my brother on the way, and he told me that they were already there. So I'm thinking I'm going to be strong for my siblings. I'm going to be so strong. But my brother took me over to where my sister was, which is younger than me. And all I can do was just hold on to my sister. And cry. There was no way that I can be strong in that moment. There was no way that I had the strength to be strong in that moment. And we cried. And I just remember going back towards my father's body. And they had it taped off, and they would not allow me to go to my father's body. But I just remember standing at that yellow tape, talking to my father and telling my father that I'm going to stand right here until they get you off the ground. I can't recall how long it took for them to examine my father, to put my father in a body bag. And for them to put his body into that white van. I don't know if I should have stood there that long, but I said to my father, I know that if it was me that was laying in that street, dead, blood everywhere, he would not have moved. he would have stood right there. As a matter of fact, my father probably would have tried to get my body up off the ground himself, no matter the consequences with the police. But I stood there having this conversation with my father about, me standing there. It's just, I couldn't move. And I remember my daughter sitting on the curve next to me. And she sat there. She sat there until her grandfather was picked up off the ground, placed in a body bag, and put in that van. And I'm going to tell you, I've never been tormented the way that I've been tormented because of my father's death. I've never cried so hard to the point where I felt like I was going to die. I never had moments in my life where an image was so horrific that I wanted to commit suicide. And I remember one night, and I laid in the bed at my daughter's home for 5 days. I couldn't move. I didn't have the strength to move. I couldn't do anything. And I'd only pack like 3 workout outfits just because I thought I was going to be gone for 2 or 3 days to Atlanta, knowing that I had to get up and get with my sister and my brother and process the loss of our father. I couldn't even do anything for myself. However, my daughter was there for me. My son was there. My children came to my aid. And just to have my daughter there, hold me, hold my hand, tell me that I'm stronger than where I thought this was going to take me out. I really thought that the loss of my father was going to take me out. I didn't want to live anymore. My son, I want to say to my son and my daughter, thank you so much. My son, just the embrace of my son as a man, just to know that my son as a man was there to comfort me. And I felt protection. I felt protected by my son and a comfort that I had never felt before. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all of my family members, all of my friends, all of the prayers, the cards, everything. But my thing is, I had to come back to Virginia. I only know 2 people here, my producer and my choreographer. I had to decide to come back to Virginia without my family and to process the loss of my father alone. And I'm going to tell you, it is truly the grace of God, the peace of God that is and has been keeping me. The Spirit telling me to get up, live, get up. You have a purpose, you have an assignment, get up. And that's what I'm choosing to do. I'm choosing to get up in this moment, deal with my mourning, deal with my pain and whatever else is going on in my head mentally. I'm choosing to get up. I'm choosing to move forward because I believe that's what my father would want me to do. And I'm going to be posting some videos about my father and the things that I've learned from my father, some things that I had the privilege and the honor of knowing about my father, and I found out that I'm so much like my father. And I think that's why this has been very, very heartbreaking for me, because I'm so much like my father. I have a lot of my mother's traits, but I am so much like my father. And we both Leos, and but anyway, Daddy, I love you. I knew I needed to do this video. I knew I needed to. And I know you want me to be strong, but I still get a chance to talk to you. I don't know who this video is for, but I know that we are in 2021 and there are so many people who are losing their loved ones. And all I want to say to you is, you have the strength to get through the storm. You have the strength to get through this storm. And when you come out of this storm, you will not be the same. That's what this storm is all about. That is one of my favorite quotes. And I want to leave you with that. Bye.